Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again on Clutching Our Pearls, my incredible little podcast that has bloomed during the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic and all of the beautiful things we've been shown about society during the pandemic, and has forged a way in the business community to start changing things now. Because I don't know about y'all, but I am tired of the same old shit on a different day. And the hamsters in my head, while they may enjoy running in little circles, I personally do not. Today, I am very blessed to have Jess Dewell with us. And okay, I know I say this a lot, but I have some of the most baller women ever on Clutching Our Pearls. And Jess is, we'll call her, like, I'm feeling a little high fidelity, but like top 10 favorite ladies to have hot business conversations with, just at the top of the list. And what makes Jess so incredibly unique is that she shows up just as she is, with this incredible amount of experience. I mean, she's got 20 years in advertising and consulting and facilitation of operational strategy and like all of culture, all the things that you need to keep a business together. But she does it in this like unexpected but entirely practical way. So this is the woman that you need to know when you are in the business death spin and you can't even make your thoughts come out of your mouth. And she has this amazing way of reaching into your heart and brain and saying, oh, here's your block. Here's the pieces. Here's what's going to happen. Let's make you some money now. A lot of the companies that are working closely with Jess learn to ask the right questions and think effectively on their feet, which is something you can't do when you're in the middle of a spin. She becomes a business advocate, specializing in really working with companies that are at a critical point of development to balance their growth with the constraints found in leadership and operations. And you want to talk about fear of success? It's a thing. And Jess looks it dead in the eye, tells it to F off, and takes care of business, which is lovely. She works with business leaders to get them successful. And when she's not, she's hanging out with her husband, Dito, in Boulder, Colorado, making life happen. So Jess, welcome to Clutching Our Pearls.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here, Marie. Thank you for that amazing introduction. And you know, we are making life happen in Boulder, Colorado, and we are clutching our pearls. And I would even say Ryan might be clutching mine sometimes too.
I think we've all been aghast for this once in the past couple of months, years. I don't remember time. But you and I have had so many just incredible conversations, and you shift my consciousness every time I talk to you. Please don't charge me for it. Today, we wanted to get together because there was something that came up in a conversation for us where we were just like, this has to be something that we open up and get conversations to happen around. Mm-hmm. Because especially as women, I believe that we are built to compromise, right? Yeah. We've got to keep the harmony. We've got to figure out how to bend and flow. And, you know, I can even remember one of my mentors told me, you know, women are the rocks and men are the rocks and women are the stream. And it's our job to figure out how to flow around them to keep everything moving. And I was like,
that's interesting and a little weird.
Yeah. If you're going to be a big dumbass boulder in my way, I am going to move you
right
out. But people get stuck in that.
We do.
If I make decisions, do I forge forward, or like, when do I say, fuck it, it's not going to work? Oh, by the way, there is no radio edit on this podcast.
Yeah.
If you have sensitive ears, we welcome you to bleep us yourself. So let's talk about fuck it or forge it.
Well, you know, okay, so you just said a whole bunch of things and I don't even know where to start, Marie. I think we'll start with this. Most people are like, well, when I have to make a decision, what do I have to do? I have to go figure out what does making a decision actually mean, even if I've done it, 10,000 times every single day? And do you know there are over 660 million articles that tell you how to make a decision? Now, because there are so many, that, you know what that tells me? That tells me that everybody can figure out what the steps are, but nobody's actually doing it well.
Yeah.
And so that made me think of what came up first here, which is you were talking about compromise. And I'm wondering, when we give up our power and we switch from diplomacy as women to compromising, which I find very fascinating to consider, because one is very powerful and one is very weakening.
And so I love a good negotiation as much as the next person. How much time would you say we spend negotiating with ourselves?
Too much.
And just trying to get to like the rightest decision we can make.
Oh, well, I would say too much, because we rely on what we think other people have told us to do. So we should be doing that. Or what else? We don't listen to the part of ourself that we actually know the most, because a different part of ourself overrides it. And I actually think that's really probably the crux of compromise, is if it's starting with us and we're not listening to ourselves and we're not anchored in who we are and what we believe in.
Yeah. And I think that's such a critical piece. I was just having a really hard conversation with a client where we had to move one of the partners out of the company, and it was painful. It's painful. Yeah. And when we brought them back to their values and showed them how misaligned everything had been, we had a foundation to move forward from.
Yep.
And it's really easy to say, okay, this is okay. This is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I also kind of firmly believe in having, I love my business girlfriends. You know that. I've called you for business girlfriend moments.
Yeah.
But I've always believed in the adage that advice is what you ask when you already know the answer and you just like it.
Mm-hmm. So, well, see, that's interesting. Okay. And I agree with that. And I would also add, I'm an experiential person. So I would rather not do research. I would rather talk to people and hear what their opinions are, and then I can sift it all out. And I actually worry when I start getting advice that has no variation, because to your point, right? To your point, if you're going to go seek advice because you already know the answer, more power to you. If that's what you need to move and make action happen, go do that. Please call up Marie, call up me, anybody you know, because we want to get you past that. If you're doing it under the guise of information gathering and you never get going from that either, that can also be an issue. However, if you do seek advice and you're only hearing one side, you're not asking enough people, or you're asking the wrong people, because that concept, I call it benign neglect, is when you, especially in business, when you only get information that already reinforces what you believe in some way, you're never going to grow, because the world is always changing. And if you only get stuff that reinforces what you've already got, you might have the right answer. You also might be slowly dying.
Yeah. And that just reminds me of everybody who goes and cleans out their Facebook feed when something happens in the world and people respond in a way that they don't like.
Yeah.
Stuck. So I think one of the things I want for just for our listeners is to kind of anchor this in what kind of decisions we're talking about, so that we can give it a little bit of context. Because
okay. Yeah. I make decisions the same, whether it's changing my toothpaste or going into business and signing a very big contract with another company. So, and the reason is because you said it earlier, values. I know where I stand. And so I know how to show up to the situation. And when I know how I'm showing up to the situation, I can decide, is somebody pressuring me to buy a different toothpaste? Right. And I'm using that on purpose. Just like we're more likely to think somebody's pressuring us into a really big deal But if I'm making decisions differently in each of those realms, I don't even have a consistent place to work from. So I'd say what we're talking about is every decision, from can I muster up dinner from whatever might be in my house because I don't have time to go to the store, all the way to is now the time to make a really big change in our business or in our lives, and how do we move forward?
Yeah. And in our sales training, we go through a lot of the psychology of decision making. And we know that at the end of the day, decisions are made with emotion and backed up with logic. And thanks to Google, we can invent any kind of logic we would like to see.
Yes.
We can make a PowerPoint. It'll be great. But we're also really only making decisions when we're coming from a place of pain or fear. And pain, fear, and gain are the three motivational factors in taking action in general. You have to either be in pain and know that you can get out of it. You have to fear that something's going to happen if you don't take action. And then if it's gain, okay, it's gain. It's not that motivational because, we both know that you can eat the entire box of Ho-Hos or not. But
right. Well, that's funny. So you're talking about weight gain, not like
all of it.
Well, and I think that's actually important. Pain has a positive and a negative. Fear has a positive and a negative. Gain has a positive and a negative. And I think that that's really important.
Yeah. And so if we're looking at things through that filter, and we've got, I think our audience is having to make decisions and compromise in everything from their home structures to what they can actually perform at work to whether or not the hell they want to get back into a rat race that just kicked them out and told them they were worthless. And now they don't know where to go and how much to compromise for a new role or a style. When we're talking about that compromise piece, how do you get people rooted to their values so that they can kind of wrap themselves up in it, or at least give themselves some stability to launch from?
Sure. Well, there are a lot of programs out there. I even made one that talk about, well, here's how you can find your values in a heartbeat without doing anything at all, except for reflecting on the one step that you could do to have some concept today is to reflect. Where are you today? Look back at the last 24 hours and the last 7 days. What were the most important things that happened to you? And important is specific to you. And when you know what's important to you, you can actually look at that list of what's important and go, haha, this is what I value. Now, the hard part is when we look at that and go, I can't believe that's what I value. Yeah. And so to me, that's the quickest way to anchor in, am I even aligned with myself? Because to your point earlier, we can't make any decision and we can't do anything well. It doesn't matter if it's out of pain, fear, or gain. We won't do it well unless we're anchored in what are we prioritizing, because what we prioritize is what we value. And if we take that away, then I can go into a conversation where, for example, I had a client that had been with me for a while, and it was time to decide how do we change the way that we work together, because we had come to the end of our beginning, middle, and end relationship. And there was a reason to start over, and there were some reasons to not, or to change the way we work together. And I have to tell you, when I came right down to it, there was fear. Well, I don't have anybody readily lined up to replace that big contract. There was gain. Boy, these people take up a lot of space in my head. And wouldn't it be great to get that back? And then there was pain. I hate thinking about them so much. And those were all the negative things. And I could come up with the positive things too. Don't get me wrong. Great group of people, great mission, really exciting the work that they were doing, and willing, even though they weren't willingly moving very fast to make change. So I had to really sit down and have it all on the table, and then be like, well, where do I want to be in the next 30 days in my role? Where do I want this company to be in the next 30 days? Who else has capacity, and what would we be making capacity for? All of that, by the way, all of those things contain uncertainty. And I went with the uncertainty because the other things were so big. So I said, I would love to come bring me in for a day now and again. That's the way we get to work together in the future when you're ready and as you're ready. So it's a beginning, middle, and an end within 6 hours. I was so excited, and things immediately changed. The sales pipeline that was all right turned and filled up more, and more prospects came out of that from the get-go. What else all because I said, this is the decision I have to make best for my company with me at the helm.
And that is such a hard flip. That's such a hard flip for folks, because we came up in the era of the customer is always right.
Customer is always right. They just might not be right for us.
Exactly. And they can do it by themselves.
That's right. Wow. Right. And I'm okay with that.
Absolutely correct. Away from me. So I think, one of the things that I would love to hear your perspective on is when you get to that space where it's okay, I either have to be all the way in, or I've got to change something. Like, you're just emotionally, limbo is not fun for anybody, right? No. How do you help people walk through the forge it bucket? Because we all know that once you say bucket, it's gone. It's
totally gone. There are two different ways I approach this, and they both start out a little and they shapely, but no direct path. So hang with me, because I'm trying to check in and see which would make. Yeah, okay. I needed to figure out which one to talk about, because both would be too much. So some of us are directional, and some of us are amplifiers. And so the first thing that I do is I listen a lot and I ask a lot of questions, because once I know if you're an amplifier or somebody that likes direction, everything else changes, because I'll bring the opposite. If you're an amplifier, I will bring focus. And in fact, there's actually a company that I have been working with, which is really fantastic. And they have this big mission, and they live in this big mission, and they end up doing too many things over time, and and we work together on a regular basis. Every quarter we're paring that down, and we're getting back to this narrow focus. And that's the skill that this particular leadership team must learn. We have to get back and learn how to be focused. And it takes time. And to your point about limbo, you can totally be taking action and still be in limbo. So are you taking the action that actually moves you through? Now thinking about those are amplifiers. Now thinking about the directional leadership teams or the directional individuals, I'm going to take action, and I'm going to go after this thing, and I'm going to move those boulders. I think you and I definitely have this trait, Maria. I bring some amplification. So are you going fast enough? Are you moving in the right direction? What does this mean for the capacity of your team? And so those are going to be something. Both of them are designed to figure out, where are we weakest, so we can strengthen that, so we're not taken out when things get bumpy or weird. That's ultimately what this is about. So if you're directional, you need some amplification. If you're an amplifier and you see all of these big things and get spread too thin, then you need a little bit more focus.
Yeah. And I love that. I saw Barbara Corcoran speak at the National Game Chamber.
I love her.
Amazing. And she said, every good business relationship I've had has an expander and a container. The expander says, all of this, yeah. And the container goes, yes, and we're going to start right here.
Yep.
I'll just box them along. And like, I've seen it in my own business, and you'll hear about it in Traction, where, you have a innovator and an implementer, and it comes in a lot of different flavors. But what I love about the way that you approach it is that none of it is adversarial. It is complete partnership and just recognizing the space that person is in and what their needs are. And I think that, as we look through, and especially all of those folks that are either lost a business or lost a career or has had life just kind of become unhinged, I think we're all a little unhinged, but some of us have just had a bumpier road.
Yeah.
If you are that amplifier, and you may not have a direction partner with you, how do you start to anchor? And
you gotta go find the directional or the opposite. You really do. And I actually, no offense, coaches, because this is something that you could learn from and actually help your clients with. Coaches help us find the best answer that's already within ourselves, to the point of kind of where we started. When you said, when we ask for advice, we're actually not going to like the answer we get because we already know the answer, kind of thing. Right. And so coaches really have an important role, and I don't think they fully understand their role. And I think they overlook a really important thing is amplifiers are going to amplify more, directioners are going to direction more, and they need a complement. And there are not very many tools other than being in relationship, having messy conversations, making it difficult to get through to actually get that experience. And a coach is great for what they do. When you want to make strides in your life and business, you got to take everything that coach said to you and find the opposite of you to help you move forward. And hopefully that coach could do that.
I love that. And I think so, especially within Forward Revolution, solidarity is huge for us.
Huge.
I know that in my life, my network has picked me up after the death of my spouse and my business partner and carried me through, helped me launch multiple businesses, given me feedback when I was on the wrong path. And that is that hot sauce love where I'm like, you're my fucking people.
That's right.
If I'm doing something dumb, you better love me enough to sit me down. And people are terrified of me. I'm 5 feet of terror, but sit me down and give me some perspective.
Right.
Because when we're amplifiers and we're on fire,
yes,
we can take in a lot of oxygen and burn a lot of things around us.
It turns people around us into yes people. And that's the exact opposite of what we need. And anybody who's saying yes because they think that's what that's supposed to be, or anybody who's demanding a yes because they think they have the authority for that, both of those are so severely wrong, and a company will fail just because of that.
Yeah. God, I love hearing you say that. I think that's going to be my next tattoo. No yes men.
None.
Because I think there have been no more bigger gifts in my life than people that love me enough to tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And those are so few and far between. And those relationships take time to facilitate.
They do.
With being in lockdown and with having to go digital in our experiences, how do you find that you're matching the right direction person with the amplifier and help them to build and facilitate that relationship if it's not already there?
So that's a really good question, because there are a couple of ways within a team. I'm also a big fan of a trio instead of a duo, always, because I don't like ties. And anybody can get good enough at tug of war that flag doesn't move away from the middle. And so I really like having that trio piece as a part of it. And within an organization where there's one at the center or one at the helm, and they're not quite ready or have decided that that's not the structure for them, that's where external sets of eyes become actually the most important, Marie, because and I'm using we as the people at the helm, the people at the center, or the people at the front or the back, wherever you're leading from, it doesn't matter. If there's only one of you, or you even have a leadership team and you're still the leader, you've got to have somebody that you can talk to, right? And that's where an outside set of eyes becomes important. It has to be safe. It has to be willing. You have to be willing to be a little bit vulnerable, because the other person has to be willing to be seeing you vulnerable and then also be vulnerable too. I mean,
that has been such a huge theme lately, that vulnerability is one of the best tools you can have in your arsenal right now. And it takes practice. But I have seen people make such amazing strides from being able to walk in that room with no ego, no intention other than growth, and just say, this is where I am.
Yeah.
I know in my life, I learned lessons that I would have never had the blessing of because I was forced to be vulnerable, right? Like you've got to go out there and grieve on brand while you save your company. Enjoy. There's no executive summary for that particular step.
No.
But it forced me into a space of having to let people help me. And
I hear you.
And, you know, having to say things like crying happens in this office. If you're not cool with it.
That's right. You know, and I think that's important because emotions have never been able to be left at the door. They just change the way with which we interact with people. And if we're covered in barnacles or we're a squeaky door, it's only going to get worse unless we do something to change it, unless we go scrape off those barnacles off the bottom of the boat so we can gain some speed. Or, you know, we use the WD-40 and make it not squeaky anymore so that whatever was building up in there could be flushed out. And no, I hear you. We, twice in my career, I have had embezzlement in companies that I have been a part of in the leadership team. And both times were devastating. One closed the company. The other one, it got taken care of internally, and that was that. So, but the fact that it occurred made me realize, and I'm using this because it does not compare to death of any kind. The pain with which you have to show up the next day and go, sorry, all of our plans stopped, or you don't have a job anymore because I can't pay you. All our money's gone. Right?
Is it with the intentional sabotage?
Yes, that's right.
That's got to hit your soul.
In a way. And here's the other thing. And then COVID happens and it's totally external. So the other thing was like totally out of control also, but it was a person who made that choice. Now we're in a situation where people have lost their businesses. They don't know what to do. They've lost their jobs and they don't understand really why. And it's because of this thing that we can't see that we just know that makes people sick. Yeah. And to me, that's actually hard too, in a whole different realm. Yet there's a lot of the similarities. It's outside of us. We can't believe it happened. It took us by surprise. Mm-hmm. All of those feelings are the same. And so anybody who has an experience like that can relate to what I'm talking about if they've never actually dealt with embezzlement.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that was such a big part of why we built the revolution the way that we did, with solidarity being at the core of it, is because we're all going through the same experiences. We all had to grieve what happened in the pandemic. We lost our way of life, but there's solidarity there, and there's beautiful value in being able to match different personality types.
Yeah. So
and pull and push one another, but still find commonalities. And I think as we start to look at life as I get to make these decisions, I have choices now. I don't have to do things the way things were always done. People are going to have to exercise their forge it or fuck it muscles. What do you recommend for them to get out there and start flexing in small ways so that they can get those guns?
We need 3 muscles to do that. We need the one between our ears, which, by the way, is what we associate with business. And if we don't like business for some reason, we shy away from it and get mad at it and ignore it. One of the embezzlement things was that for me, I did not pay attention to having the safety net in place. Okay. The second is that it's our heart. And many of us are really good at listening to our heart, and then we do something else anyway. And to the point of advice, right? And the third is our gut. And that's really important as well. And we primarily act within one of them. And this also is a place for us to be show up, understand that we're all walking around path, yet we have similar experiences and we can truly be there for each other, is that we're each making decisions with one more than the other. And the thing would be is, how do we show up? And when we're in a moment where we're feeling, usually that's going to come from our heart, how do we double check that with our brain? How do we triple check that with our gut, or vice versa? And the same is true. I do everything from gut. If something smells good, sounds good, and there seems to be opportunity there and it aligns with my priorities and my values, I'm all in all the way. And then I'm like, well, how does that actually feel? Are there other things I should be thinking about to make sure that when I say yes, I know I need my floaties and I need to remember to take my shoes off before I jump in that pool, right? Whatever the case may be, they're just small things that we can do. And I would say anchor those along with a weekly reflection. What was the most important stuff that I did this last week? And then once it's on that piece of paper, do I like it? Those two things are going to be regular small practices that can allow a small change week to week and progress.
And I love that, because I think it's the debriefing that brings so much value. I want to teach my daughter and to every person in my team and in my client book to go fail fantastically. Yes. Go jump and spread your wings. And if it wasn't exactly what you thought, go back and say, hey, was it a complete failure, or did this work? Did this work? Did this work? Where was the beauty? Where was the gift? What lesson did I learn so that I can jump again and get a lot closer to my target? And not everybody is built this way. I understand. From my analyticals, continue to Google things and then call somebody who's a driver and let them push your butt off a cliff. But that feedback from yourself and from your spirit, your head, your heart, your gut, those are the things that are going to keep you moving. Everybody else could be well-intentioned, but they're not with you for your entire ride.
No, they're with you for a moment.
Right.
They're with you for a moment. That's exactly right. And when we know what's right for us, everybody else that's supposed to be with us on that path, right, at that time, will be. And it allows everybody who's not on the path with us at that moment in time not to be. Doesn't mean they're out of our life. Just means they're not on the path with us right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as so many people are going through change, Jess, I hope they find other people like you in their worlds, where you've got somebody that is going to love you enough to ask the hard question, to say the hard thing, to tell you when you are batshit crazy, or ask you if you're drunk, right, because of what you had just said. Mm-hmm. And be there for you when they need a moment, and and you can be of service. And I promise you guys, you would have a network of people that you really care about, that are worth your time, and that will surprise you by showing up in the times when you can't even ask for it. Yeah. So it sounds to me like Forge It or Fuck It has a lot to do with fabulous friends and deep, deep thoughts and reflection, so that you can go do it better. So listeners, I want to thank you again for spending time with us. I do want to invite you to connect with Jess. Find her on social media at Jess, that's JSS_DEWELL. She also has this baller podcast called Bold Business. Get out there, give it a listen. You may also find a little episode with moi in there. I'm not going to say it's the best one, but
it's they're the best one. I rate every single one of my podcast episodes. You got 5 stars, girlfriend. Mm-hmm. No, actually, now everybody knows I rate them after they come on the show. That might not have been a good thing to share, but whatever. We're here. We're all in.
Also, visit her at reddirection.com. And for those of you that have not yet joined the revolution, guys, it's free. Go to fwdrevolution.com, hit member portal. I've got a free seat waiting for you. And that solidarity and that vulnerability and that experience that you need to help you get through whatever part of life you're experiencing. We have a plan. I want to invite everyone to also join us on tomorrow, June 2nd, with Parents Talk Back with our expert, Andrea Picard, who is a licensed clinical therapist. Andrea is a dear friend of mine and the mom of 3 and a survivor of the pandemic and trying to run her practice in her basement. And she's got some insights about how to really take the insanity that parents have been hit with and find a productive place for it, or at least keep you from murdering your children this week. I want to say a very special thank you to our sponsors, Troy Technologies and Safety Chicks. None of this would be possible without you. And this podcast and this revolution are part of my dream. Please go to the website, follow us on social media, tell all your friends, and let's change the way that work works. Thanks, everyone.